I had an email about wanting to know how I have my solar set up. I used to be a 48 volt system, but I didn't like the overall efficiency. So I actually switched over to a 96 volt system. Now, I've got this is going to blow your mind away. I've got 10 arrays running at 96 volts, okay? And each one is doing 5,760 watts, 60 amp at 96 volts. Now, each one has its own charge controller. The charge controller is converting it back to 12 volts at 480 amps, 5,760 watts. From my charge controller, it goes into 10 AGM glass mat 230 amp hour batteries. I never actually drop below 80% capacity on my batteries, even on the worst days. There's only two to 4 days of the year that my generator actually kicks on, and those are days where it's snowing and so overcast that there's nothing in it, and it only kicks on when the batteries are under 80% and there's no input coming from the solar system. Then the generator will kick in. But over the last 4 years, my generator has only run 36 hours over 4 years. So, and so that kind of shows you the efficiency. But that's the thing is, on a day like today where it's crazy hot and sunny, it takes about 30 minutes to an hour to bring them from 80% to 100% capacity. On a normal day with some overcast, that from dawn till dusk, my battery banks will actually recover 100%. I have enough power on my system to power all my power tools, run my welder. I've got two big freezers that are going. We've got another family of three that are leasing property next door to us that are using our power. We've got ourselves, and we provide enough power. But the thing is about this setup with the 96 volts, as long as all my panels are actually working, I'm producing my power. And now I have some panels that are in portrait. The ones on top of the bus are run portrait because I wanted to see if there's any real difference between portrait and landscape. My towers are all landscape. My big arrays are all landscape, and I've noticed maybe like a 10% difference in efficiency between them. The landscape is 10% more efficient, so I would recommend when you can, where you can, run them in landscape. But running this system, like I've been experimenting with actually solar efficiency for off-grid situations for the last 12 years, and this has been the system that's proven. When I go to 120 volts, it's a little bit hard on the batteries, it's hard on the controller system, and it just seemed to be too problematic. When I dropped it back down to 96 volts, everything seemed to work out perfectly. Batteries were charging properly, they weren't overheating, charge controllers were working, inverter outputs were just great, because while it's charging the battery, but also outputting directly to the inverter, so the power that we're running during the day is not pulling from the battery banks. But this is how I've got my setup. I'm running 96 volts with 960 watts per each set in on the array. So, and it's pretty much just keeping everything going perfectly. I can make a video explaining this a little bit more if you guys want, but for the average bear out there with your average off-grid power consumption of 48 volt system with 10 batteries is going to be more than enough. But you're going to need to have the panels to bring those batteries up, a good charge controller, and good efficient inverters. That's the key. Don't buy cheap Chinese stuff because they don't last, they're not efficient. I use Outback and Go Power equipment. I've been using that for years. I love them. But yeah, this is what my system's running. I'm running 96 volts to my controller, and from my controller it's converting it back out to 12 volts. And right now I'm actually using 12 volt AGM glass mat cell tower batteries, because lithium ion is friggin' expensive still right now, and for the battery capacity that I have, it would cost an arm and leg, and I just don't trust lithium, because when they catch on fire, you're screwed, glued, and tattooed. AGMs, you can put that fire out. An AGM battery ever bursts or catches on fire, you can control it, you can put it out. It's easy to take care of, it's safe. None of that, they can handle a pretty decent charge rate, they handle heat quite well. There's no horrible, like, high amounts of off-gassing coming off them compared to lead acids and that's why I chose the AGMs, because they're just the safer battery out of all the batteries right now. And they're affordable, they're easy to replace, they're affordable to replace. But this is just how my system is set up, this is how it works. And for 365 days of the year, I'm never without power. And like I said, I've got everything set up that if my batteries drop below 80% and there's no input coming from the solar panels, the generator will kick in, and the generator usually has to only run an hour to an hour and a half each time it runs to charge the batteries up. So it's an extremely efficient system, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's not cheap. My whole entire off-grid system here, including the cost of the generator, the components that I use to do this, the sensors and the monitors, the panels, the batteries, the controllers, I'm up to $160,000 to be able to be 100% off-grid and self-sufficient power-wise, with no grid input or anything like that. Be able to run my well pump, run my power tools, all our appliances, 2 freezers, and another couple living in their motorhome adjacent to us. So yeah, it's doable, but it's expensive and it takes a lot. But so far, this is the system that I found for off-grid that works the most efficiently. And the other thing too is about going with the 96 volt. I don't have to use double-aught wire to run everything. I can go up on a 2-aught wire. My panels can literally be 160 feet away from the charge controller without suffering anything more than a 1.6% in power loss. The higher the voltage, the lower the amperage, the less resistance. So, and like that's the thing, is all my wiring on my panels, I'm using 8 gauge off the panels. Then from the panels going to the controllers, I'm running actual 4-aught, like 4-aught and 2-aught, depending on where the tower is. But it's like, that's the thing is, and I've got quite a large array. You guys have seen my videos of my solar system and that, but a couple of you were wondering about how's my setup and that, and how does it work. None of that. This way I'm actually able to actually run stuff like on my 220 inverter efficiently, like my 220 tools, my welder, my big table saw, my heavier tools, quite efficiently. And it also comes down, like I'll have to explain to you in another video how I set my batteries up and how I wire them and connect them to be efficient, as I've tested every single method that there is for connecting them, and I've figured out which one actually is the most efficient. But I'll make that another video, because this video is getting a little bit long. But that's just the lowdown on my solar system. I'm not a big fan of the solar walls or these house tie grid systems. I know a lot of your municipalities and counties that you're in, they require you to follow a specific code, and that code usually calls for a grid tie system like the Tesla Powerwall. But I don't like these Powerwalls because they don't allow very much for customization of storage, input, and output. Because like the Tesla wall only has 2 MPPT trackers units built into it, and each one's only capable of 15 amps, where a Outback solar controller, I can get up to 1,000 volts and up to 80 amps control on that, and it will convert it down. It's a far more efficient unit than that, and which allows you to customize your panels a little bit more and have a little more oomph. And that's why, like if I get asked to do an install I will go out and do an install to the code, but sometimes I just hate how the code is. I know it's there for a reason to keep us safe, but there's a way to do this extremely safe and fail safe. But if you're an off-grid solution and you don't have to worry about inspection because you're not tying into the grid, and your home is going to be, and you can actually prove to the inspection board that it's a separate system operating the same as a generator. So when you like out here, I just tell people it's a tell the municipality it's a solar generator, and it's not a solar tie. Because if it's a generator, it can be hooked up the same way as a generator, but when they're gone away and they walk away, you can flick that breaker and leave it on all the time. But anyways, video's over 10 minutes, so I'll let you guys mull this over and ponder it. But this is how I run my system, and it's proving to be extremely efficient.